So I need your help, if you will, please. When I say patience, I need you to say with persistence. So patience. With persistence. Oh, you can do better than that. Patience. With persistence. Perfect. So I'm going to share a story with you. When I was a little girl, I had no patience. With persistence. Exactly. It was very difficult for me to wait for anything. You guys have that problem? Yeah. If you see something, do you want it right away? The new phone, the new shoes, the new car. You're not there yet, but you know. So I had a very hard time with that. If I saw it, I wanted it. Now, I wasn't one of those kids that cried or screamed or threw a tantrum or threw things. Instead, what I tried to do was negotiate, and I tried to convince, and I tried to talk my parents, my teachers, into whatever it was that I wanted. And sometimes, often it was very effective. Now, I'm not sure if I was that good at communicating or if they just wanted me to shut my mouth. But eventually, I very often got what I wanted. And I found out that sometimes what you want isn't what you need. So that takes me to my parents. My mom always said, good things come to those who wait. But what I saw in my dad was you have to persevere. So wait, but action. That's what I learned when I was growing up. So, patience. With persistence. So I want to share a story with you. When I was 5 years old, I was at a store with my mom. We used to celebrate a holiday that we called Easter, and it was a big deal to me because the Easter bunny came on that Sunday morning, and I got this huge basket full of candy and cookies and snacks and treats. And we were at this store, and there was a bag of gumballs in the Easter candy aisle, and I wanted them. And I started talking to my mom, and I started telling her that I was going to be good, and I was going to unload the dishwasher. I was only 5, 6 years old. And I came up with all these reasons that I should have that bag of gumballs. And my mom told me, no, you're going to get an Easter basket tomorrow. I'm sure the Easter bunny's going to come. Nope, you don't need that. Come on. So she started to go around the corner, and I noticed right next to that big bag of gumballs, there was an open bag of gumballs. That had to be divine intervention, right? So I looked around, I grabbed a handful of them, held my little fist, and then went around to where my mom was. I swear, parents have radar. They just figure this stuff out, right? I mean, you walk in and they look at you and they know that you've done something that you weren't supposed to or that they thought you weren't supposed to. So I went around and she looked at me, what's in your hand? Nothing, I'm just clenching my fists. What's in your hand? It only took her about a minute to get me to open my hand and show her those gumballs. And she made me take them back, and I'll never forget, she leaned down and she said, the Easter bunny isn't coming to our house tomorrow. I couldn't believe that. I didn't take the gumballs. I knew she had to be wrong. The Easter bunny was a forgiving being. There was no way that the Easter bunny was not going to bring my basket. So I got up the next morning, and I went into the living room, no Easter basket. I looked in the dining room, no Easter basket. I looked under the couch, I looked everywhere. And my mom came in, and I didn't want to say, where's my Easter basket? I didn't want to tell her what I was doing, but she knew. She said, I told you that the Easter bunny wasn't going to come. You can't take things that don't belong to you. Patience? Persistence. So, the one thing that I learned very quickly is you have to do the right thing. And you can't take shortcuts to get what you want. And you have to be patient. Because if I'd been patient, you don't have to say with persistence, the very next day, I would have had a big basket of candy. But I took a shortcut, I cheated, I got caught, and I got nothing out of it. So, my mom always said, good things come to those who wait. So now we're going to get to the perseverance. My father was a federal law enforcement agent. He was a federal marshal. He is the reason that people discovered hepatitis C, because he had B in his system. He got exposed to A from a prisoner, and it grew into C. So he is why we know what that is. But he didn't start out like that. That's not what I'm going to tell you about him. When my father was a young man, he went into the military. He forged his parents' signature at 17 and got in. And he caught tuberculosis. You kids don't know this, but it was back in epidemic proportions. And so he got out of the military, met my mom, got married, and he wanted to be a federal marshal. That was his dream. He got his GED, he went, he applied. They rejected him. You don't have enough job experience. So he went to the Navy base close to where they lived, and he applied for a base police officer position. He didn't get it. So he applied for a security guard position, and he got it. And he kept applying to the police department, and he wasn't getting it. So for about a year, he did the best he could. He would go volunteer. He would offer to help. Anytime he ran into a police officer on base, he would interface with them. He got to know them. And in about a year, the base police sergeant said to him, "Hey, Moore, why don't you go on and apply again?" And he did, and he got the job. Well, he thought, okay, if I can get the job with the base police department, I'm going to go on and apply to be a marshal again. And he applied, and guess what happened? He got rejected. Okay, patience? With persistence. So he worked his tail off as a base police officer. In 3 years, he promoted 4 times. And he worked and he worked and he worked, and he got letters of recommendation from generals, and he got letters of recommendation from admirals, and he had all of this arsenal of why he was the best man to be a marshal. And he applied, and he got rejected. And kiddos, this won't happen to you, but back in the day, if you were overweight, you wouldn't get hired for some jobs. They actually could tell you that you couldn't have a job to be a stewardess if you didn't weigh 123 pounds and you weren't a certain height. So my father got told that he could not be a marshal because he weighed too much. He was heartbroken. Patience? My mom told him, it ain't going to go that way. They wrote the governor, they wrote the senator, they wrote everybody they possibly could. And you know what happened? I don't know who said it or what they did, but they went to the government, and my father gets contacted by the marshal's office, and you know what they say to him? "We've got a job for you if you can lose 30 pounds in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, 5 pounds a week." You know what, though? He did it. And when he had to go for his physical, he had lost 30.5 pounds in 6 weeks. Patience? So he became a federal marshal. He lived his dream, right? And my parents had an entire life of patience with persistence. Good things coming to those who wait. I'm adopted. They could only have one child. They applied with social services to have another child. It took them 8 years to finally get one, to get me. Weren't they lucky? Patience? So my father was a federal marshal, and he was happy, and he was so excited, and he was traveling, and he was protecting these witnesses, and he was at Wounded Knee. Just unbelievable things that he did. I can remember going to the judge's house for a cookout, and they had filet mignon, and they had hamburgers, and I wanted a hot dog, and the judge got in his car and drove 3 miles down the road to get me a pack of hot dogs. So we were living the dream, and then my dad got sick. He transported a prisoner that knew he was sick. The government knew he was sick, but they didn't tell the marshals who transported him. So the other marshal that transported him, he got hepatitis A, but he was okay. But my dad, who had caught hepatitis in the Korean War and had B dormant in his system, got exposed, and he got sick. He almost died. The doctor gave him 6 months. He lived 2 years. The doctor gave them 4 months. He lived 3 more years. And this went on and on and on. That was when I was 7, and he didn't die until I was 21. But the Federal Marshal Service said, "You're sick. You can't work. You got to retire." Patience? And my dad, my mom, said, "No way. No way." This is your dream. This is what you love. And you are in the situation you are because of what they did and what they didn't do. So again, they wrote the congressman, they wrote the senator, they wrote the president of the United States. And you know what? My dad kept his job. There were some years that he was in the hospital more days than he was home. There were some years that he was in the hospital more days than he worked. But he got to work, and he got paid, and he got to do what he loved. Patience? So this is what I grew up seeing, and this is what I grew up learning, that you really have to believe that good things that come to those who wait. But you have to persevere. Persevere means to be that you are persistent, that you don't give up, regardless of how hard or how difficult it is. Today, you've heard conversations, you've heard presentations about following your dreams, about not being limited, about being who you want to be, about great people who have inspired you. And I want to tell you today, you have to persevere. You cannot give up. You have got to hang in there. Now, I'm not saying that if at 13 years old you think that at 14 you've never had a singing lesson, you're going to go perform in Carnegie Hall. That may not happen. But if you know who you are and what you're good at, if you find your passion and you follow it, you pursue it, you believe in it, and you are patient, with persistence, it will come. But you have to believe. You have to give. You can't take shortcuts, like stealing some gumballs. You really have to do it the right way. But if you put the time and the energy and the commitment into it, if you believe and you deliver, eventually good things come to those who wait with perseverance. Thank you.